What are the laws that govern the foundations of the universe? And what mysteries pass us by day after day, perceived yet unknown and unseen by mere mortals like ourselves? The truth is deeper than we may ever grasp, but let us give names to the forces that we feel, that we might see the many shapes they take, and better know them. Today, we look at the Four Constellations, a group of foundationally important symbols in the folklore and mythology of mainland China. The Qing Dragon, the Vermillion Bird, the White Tiger, and the Black Tortoise. Join me, Jaer Christie, as I explore the hidden legends that shape the world on the Mythographist. The Four Constellations. The seasons and the stars that spin between them shape our lives, how we dress, what we can eat, where we can travel, even when the sun rises and when our day begins. And though the universe may seem to move and change at the whim of unseen gods, as we watch, we begin to understand the circular river through which we travel, the great cycle, the slow patterns that surround us. This we know, that there are 4 seasons: spring and summer, autumn and winter, and in each of these the sky bears distinct markings. The constellation that rules each season has characteristics all its own, and its power and dominion are linked to many things, both physical and spiritual. The dawn of the year, when our world wakes from its slumber and blossoms again with new birth, spring, when all is vibrant and alive, this is the day of the Qing Dragon, or Qinglong, who makes his domain in the east and controls the element of wood. When his stars fill the sky, the earth is reborn, and we plant our crops and plan for the year to come. Close behind him, flying from her home in the south, comes Juchui, the Vermillion Bird, whose return heralds the summer months. From her stars she knows the powers of fire, which give her form. This element is her dominion, and it is perhaps her presence that warms the world and helps the fields to flourish. She brings a time of joy and ease where the struggle to survive is not quite so harsh. Prowling in her wake is the White Tiger, Baihu, emperor of the land. The west is his domain. He stalks the mountain forests and ushers in the cool winds of autumn. His fur may be soft and his paws giant, but his claws are sharp and his teeth ready. His constellation gives him the authority of gold and all metals. His reign begins with the harvest, a time of abundance, but one which wanes with the length of the day, when we prepare for more difficult times to come. Under the stars of the year's midnight comes Xuanwu, dark warrior of the north, the Black Tortoise entwined with a snake. Whether one creature or two, Xuanwu's nature may never be known, but he fiercely defends all that falls under his care. The waters bend to his will, freezing during the winter months when rule is his. Though his season may be bitter, there is much we can learn from him too. How we must use times of plenty to prepare for those of scarcity. The acceptance of difficulty, and the patient stillness of the cold. Thus the seasons, the elements, the stars, the beasts, the colors, the directions, though each is several, still they form a whole, and their corresponding parts fit together perfectly. But there is naught in nature without contradiction, and a fifth to all of these exist. For what are 4 directions without a middle? And what are the elements without the soil that binds them together? At the center of all things is the yellow dragon, the source of all, and it is they that add true dimension to the 4 pieces of the eternal circle. Imagine what it would be like if you didn't know that the Earth was a little sphere going around a star. You'd see these cycles like the seasons and which stars were where in the night sky, and so many other patterns that are clearly connected but have no context for why. But being human, you need a why. How do you make sense of it all? The 4 constellations are a simple yet powerful system of symbols that connect these patterns with ideas, and they truly permeate Chinese culture. To give some perspective on the depth of their influence, references to them have been found in burial sites in Hunan province that probably date to around 5300 BCE. That's well over 2,000 years before the pyramids or even Stonehenge were constructed. To be honest though, I was going to pass these guys over altogether because there's hardly a story to be told at all here. I've heard that there are origin stories for each of these beasts, but I've never actually found or heard any of them. But I changed my mind for two reasons. The first is how prevalent they are in culture, both modern and ancient. The Four Constellations are everywhere, all across Asia and beyond. In Japan, from mecha to manga, and from Gamera to Kamen Rider. And in the West, in movies like The Joy Luck Club and the Kung Fu Panda series, video games like Dynasty Warriors, Final Fantasy, Wolong Fallen Dynasty, and of course as motifs and subjects in visual art, whether ancient sculpture or CG work that got posted on ArtStation this week. They're easy to remember, and very much what you see is what you get, but they've also got enough associations that it's easy to assign meaning and importance to them. They're a great way for a storyteller to align the story that they're telling with something bigger, and I mean this in the absolute best way possible. They are, pun absolutely intended, quintessential symbols. The second reason I decided to include them is because they showcase the wuxing system, literally the 5 rows, which is incredibly important all throughout Chinese thought, philosophy, and literature. Wuxing is all about balance and connections, and it encompasses, as we see, seasons, colors, directions, traditional elements, animals, constellations, as well as a number of other phenomena. This seemed like an important harmonizing factor that we should mention. Wuxing goes pretty deep, and you can dive as far in as you want. If you want to really get into the weeds, I recommend checking out the I Ching, or Book of Changes, an important work of Chinese mysticism. Wikipedia is a good place to start, of course, and as a nice bonus, it provides a comprehensive hierarchy of the 5 elements, which, with a little creativity, you can use to make the ultimate game of rock, paper, scissors. But we're not done here yet. I want to take some time to talk about one of these symbols in particular, one with many facets and countless legends and folktales. This creature is the Long, which, in English, we call the dragon. Tales of the best known of all magical creatures, the dragon, could fill many books. These stories come from every corner of the world, and the dragons they tell of are as different as the people who tell them. In the Middle Kingdom, however, the dragon is a divine creature, a bringer of good fortune, an auspicious visitor. He has a body and tail like a snake, 4 small clawed feet, a muzzle full of sharp teeth, whiskers upon his face, and atop his head a sleek mane and long branching horns. A dragon can be smaller than a cat or bigger than a house, and his scales may be the darkest black or a pearlescent rainbow, or any other color under heaven or above it. A dragon's sharp eyes can see not only far into the distance, but also deep into the heart of a matter, revealing the truth of things. Dragons are divine and have many mystical powers. They fly even without wings. They control water, guiding rivers and bringing rain. They are proud and just, but by their very nature are quite intimidating. Legend tells us of a man named Ye Gong who loved dragons so much that he covered his whole house with their pictures and scrolls. But when a rather flattered dragon came to pay his respects, Ye Gong fled in terror. Often, dragons rule over a particular region, either in the heavens or on the earth. They govern the people and bring luck to those who honor them. They punish those who do evil, and if any man should be so foolish as to wrong a dragon, he will soon find just how fierce and vengeful one can be. We should speak also of the children of the dragon, a most curious subject. Dragons can, of course, have baby dragons similar to themselves. but heroes of old were often born of a dragon and a human. Though they appeared human, they carried the aspect of the dragon within, doing mighty deeds and showing great wisdom. There are also 9 legendary children of the dragon, each resembling both the dragon and another terrestrial animal, and each with its own special abilities and distinctive characteristics. These can be observed readily even today. The firstborn child of the dragon is the Bisi, half turtle and half dragon. It has great strength and can lift and bear heavy things. Many times you will see it resting at the base of heavy stone monuments. The secondborn is the Cherwen, which has large round eyes and a wide mouth like an owl or a fish. Due to the size of its mouth, the Cherwen can swallow a great deal, and it can be found on gutters to drink up rainwater and atop roofs to consume and repel bad influences. The dragon's thirdborn is the Pulao, who, being part dog, likes to do nothing more than howl and scream. This may seem a strange pastime, but the Pulao has long found a home on the metal bells that ring out messages over the city. The fourth child of the dragon is the Bian, who shares the tiger's appearance and ferocity. The Bian loves bringing justice and resolving disputes, and it can often be seen at the gates of prisons and courts. The fifthborn is the Qiu, a dragon cow, a peace-loving beast who is quite fond of music, the sound of the wind through the reeds and the stirring of bow against string. You can find its image carved onto musical instruments as a decoration. The Baxia, which is part snake, is the dragon's sixthborn. It can drink more than any other creature, and so architects of ancient days would make a home for it on the sides of bridges to prevent water from flowing above the bridge's arch. Seventh among the dragon's offspring is the Yadze, half-wolf, and it loves the clash of swords and the thrill of the fight. Those whose feet follow violent paths have long adorned the hilts of their knives and swords with the likeness of the Yadze's head. The eighthborn of the dragon is the Swanni, who, though partly lion, delights in resting among the fragrance of incense. It makes itself comfortable in temples and is pleased when the Buddha uses it as a footrest. The dragon's youngest child is the Jiaotu. As with many who are one among a large family, Jiaotu, who is much like a large clam, prefers to be left alone. It lives on the doorstep of many homes and protects the privacy of those who live inside, as well as its own solitude. These children of the dragon may be found in many places, for they have dispersed across the lands. But there are also dragons who have made names for themselves and who rule their own lands. The mightiest of these are the great dragons, who live at the ends of the earth. To the north is the black dragon, Ao Shun. His is the winter. In the south reigns the red dragon, Ao Qin, and the summer is his domain. In the west is the white dragon, Ao Run. He rules the autumn. And in the east is Ao Guang, the Qing Dragon. Spring belongs to him. As with the constellations, at the center of all directions and presiding over all of them is the yellow dragon. He is the ruler of water, the king, bringer of rain, the mystical source of the universe, and it is through him that all who have power receive it. The dragon, whether great or small, is wise and mystical, and in showing it reverence, he will bring good fortune and honor to yourself, and to your family and lands, and perhaps even to your cows. Reverence of dragons in Chinese culture likely goes back well over 7,000 years, and there's a practically endless supply of myths about them in Chinese folklore. As we saw, unlike the Western concept of dragons, Chinese dragons, and those of most other Asian cultures, are benevolent protectors with the power to control the waters. Dragons represent the positive male aspect, or yang, and therefore are the traditional symbol of the emperor, contrasting with the Fenghuang, who we discussed in the Four Beasts of Good Fortune. The story of Yegong is perpetuated in the oft-repeated idiom Yegong Hao Long, which means something like, he says he likes it, but he doesn't really know what he's talking about. Many scholars throughout history have studied the dragon and its children, and there is some dispute as to the identity of these 9, as well as the order of their birth. As always, the information I've presented here is not definitive. If you ever happen to speak with a dragon or one of its children about this, definitely take its word above my own. This episode of The Mythographist was written, narrated, and produced by me, Jaer Christie, with research by myself and Elena Tung, and music by Xiaoqing Luna Li and the China National Orchestra. If you liked this episode, stick around, because there's lots more where this came from. Subscribe to get notified automatically when The Mythographist updates, and be sure to check out the rest of the episodes on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Finally, if there's a story that you grew up with that has shaped the way you see the world, I'd love to hear it. There are so many stories out there, and the more of them we hear, the more we'll understand each other. Remember, we can't learn if we don't listen. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you next time on The Mythographist.